Good morning, folks. I hope everyone is having a great day. This is Sarah, and I'm a customer success manager with SkyBitz. On behalf of myself and the entire SkyBitz team, we want to welcome you all to week 3 of SkyBitz Training Tuesdays. Weeks 1 and 2 are available on the SkyBitz YouTube channel. We hope that these 1-hour sessions will improve your level of understanding within the Insight tool in order to bolster your confidence in using our best-in-class user interface to its fullest potential. The intent of the trainings is to provide a live demonstration environment with as few PowerPoint slides as possible. A few housekeeping items before we dive in. We have muted all participant lines so we don't have any background noise. Sorry about that. If you have muted yourself and you want to ask a question later, you must unmute yourself because we can't do that for you once you've muted yourself. Please hold all questions until the end of the session. We have factored in about 15 minutes for questions and answers. All sessions are being recorded and will be available for playback via the SkyBitz YouTube channel. Today, we're going to dive further into landmarks, which is kind of a part 2 of what we started last week. We'll talk about nested landmarks, how to set them up, and landmark groups. We're also going to show you how to utilize these landmarks that we've set up in searching. So you're able to locate assets that are in landmarks and so on and so forth. Just to review from last week, I know a lot of people on the call have attended the first 2 trainings, so you were involved in how to set up the landmarks. But what I wanted to do first was kind of revisit why you would want to set landmarks up. Why do companies use landmarks? They identify essential points of interest for your business. So your yards, your customers, service centers, suppliers, any area or address that you will be using in your day-to-day operations that you currently use to identify where your assets are. You can use them to filter in conjunction with other identifiers. So what you're able to do with landmarks is to say, find a landmark. And what I also want to do, if you utilize our cargo sensor, for example, is I would like to find all empty trailers at a certain landmark. And you can do yard checks based on locations. So once you set up locations, also known as landmarks in our system, you can then have the yard check report sent to you. But you really need to streamline that by adding the landmarks initially. What can you do with landmarks? So the features that we discussed last week that were affected by landmarks, meaning when I set them up now, what can I do with them? Location-based searches, yard checks like I mentioned, trailer pool, detention, and we're going to go over all of these topics over the course of the Training Tuesdays. Reporting, average idle time for all landmarks, for example. That's an idle report, including idle trends per landmark. And the asset view, which is the newer section of the user interface. You can use landmarks as a filter in or out of landmarks. Do I want to see everything that's in a certain landmark, or do I want to see all assets that are outside of landmarks? When should I set up landmarks? Immediately, ASAP, yesterday. You should set them up right away. We, customer care and the customer success management team, are able to run a report for you to show you your account's current landmarks. So whatever landmarks you currently have in your account, we're able to then run a report for you and say, here they are. Here's when they were added, what you've called them, the location, the latitude and longitude. We can send that to you. And especially for our customers who've been with us for some years, you may need to do some editing, right? Remove some, add some, tweak some of the ones that are in existence. So those are the things that we really talked about last week. And I just wanted to remind everyone what we talked about and kind of bring some other folks up to speed and let you know what we did last week on the Training Tuesday session. So currently we are logged into Insight. And what I wanted to do first today was to discuss nested landmarks. So nested landmarks allow you to make usable smaller landmarks inside of a larger landmark. Example, your yard. Smaller loading dock areas inside of the larger yard. Maintenance yards that are part of the larger landmark, staging yards if certain trailers are set aside for a specific purpose. So you don't want them in the regular yard check. And another example that's a great example is wash stations. You have wash stations in your larger yard. You want to be able to box those off, and you want to be able to note that they are separate, but separate from, but part of the larger landmark. So the way that we create a nested landmark, what I'm going to do is go to a landmark, and we will go to edit or delete. And I will find one of the landmarks that I've created. And submit. You can use any of these landmark search tools. So if you know the address using the country and state, the city and the type, landmark, location ID, or you can type it in like I just did. And what will happen is you will then have the choices. As I start to type in, I will start to have intuitive choices of which landmark to select. Or if you know the landmark location ID, then you can certainly type that in because they are unique per landmark. And then I will hit submit. Okay, so here's what we're looking at. We're looking at the landmark that we created. That I created called FD Pennsylvania, and that is right here. That's the center of the landmark right here. And down here is the information that I included in this landmark. Now what I want to do is create one or many. You can create really what you need within this landmark. I want to create the nested landmark within this larger landmark. So I'm going to start with this. And what I'll click on over here, and just so everybody knows, if you hover over any of the icons within Insight, you'll then see exactly what you're able to do with that icon. So we can show them on the map, show this one on the map. We can edit this landmark. We can delete the landmark. We can create a nested landmark. So I'm going to click on that. So the parent landmark information is over here to the left. Any information that you've entered about this landmark is captured over here, and you can't edit it at this time because currently what we're doing is creating the nested landmark or landmarks within the parent landmark. So this is everything that's associated with the larger landmark. And I am in satellite presentation. I can add street labels if I need to. I can put this in map presentation. I'm going to keep it how it is just for this purpose, but you're able to utilize that functionality as well that Google offers. And I can actually pop this out into a full screen view. I can utilize street view here, and I'm able to either use these zoom in or zoom out tools, but I can also use my mouse to scroll in or out if I need to get closer or pull back a little bit. So when I create a new nested landmark, what I want to do here is click on the plus. And it's going to create a little fence within my larger fence. So this is a good example to show where trailers are parked by a building. And I'm not exactly sure what's going on here with this company, but I'm going to just, for this purpose, I'm going to show you how to create a few nested within the larger. This yellow box is the box I'm working on. I can keep this as a multi-point, or I can make this circular, but I really want to keep it as multi-point because I'm going to make a fine point on this area up here. And I want to pull in my little pull points. And every time I see this little arrow, just like last week, when you make a change, the change that you just made, you can undo it. So that's what this little arrow is for. So if I messed up, I can undo. And I can actually pick this up, right? And that is one of my new nested landmarks. So what I want to do over here is I'm going to call this Sarah's Lot. Add. And in 1 second, it's going to create that landmark. So I have a nested landmark created successfully. Again, we talked about this last week. if there's an error or if something happens when you're creating, that happened to me last week. I made a little error with pulling those pull points in to make a proper shape. It told me that that's what was wrong with it, and then it'll give me that information up here. Nested landmark created successfully, fantastic, that's what I want to see. I'll close that box. Now I do want to make another one, so I'm going to do this one more time. I'll do it quickly, just to show you you're able to then make another one. Now I just want to make it clear that once you're out, if you go outside of this border, it is no longer a nested landmark because it is not nested completely inside the larger landmark. So I want to pull this down over here. Let me make this a nice little, well, as nice as I possibly can. Make this little parking lot, and that is the parking lot. And hit add. All right, nested landmark created successfully. So this is a small area, just for example purpose, but I know that, you know, a lot of people on the phone probably have very large yards that they're, you know, thinking of using nested landmarking within. And you certainly can put, you know, a whole bunch of different landmarks in nested landmarks within the larger landmark, which is helpful, which I'm going to show you how we can then identify the nested landmark, but you can put in as many as you want. The good news is you're always going to be able to tell which ones are nested because it's going to be a completely different color. So nested landmarks and their creation. Again, maintenance yards, staging yards, wash stations, docks, loading, unloading areas, whatever you think you would want to then further identify within an already created nested landmark is why you would use nested landmarks. Now, where do they appear? I'm going to search a specific asset ID up here in the quick search area. And once I search that, hit go. So we'll be coming out of that area. I had created another nested landmark that this asset has now moved out of. It was in here earlier this morning, but what I'm going to do, so you can see the nested landmark within the larger landmark. Let's go like this, asset ID, click on the asset ID. Now, this is where you will see your nested landmarks. If you're accustomed to using the asset search functionality, whether you're using it quick up here, where you're locating assets, doing an asset-based search, the way you're going to see where your asset was located within a nested landmark, and it really highlights it. So it wasn't there when I originally looked it up, but as I had mentioned, I took a look at it this morning to make sure it was in that nested landmark. So it was at a different landmark that I had created, and it's been moving. And then what happened was earlier today, it was in my nested landmark. So it was in a larger landmark, which is the HQ Herndon test. Then it is now also presenting in the nested landmark. So it's blue, it's saying the word nested. That's how we're seeing exactly where it is on the map in the data portion. So if I go right in here, I zoom in, I can see all the times it's been moving around. I can also look here as well and see if once I click on that line item, so it's a number on the map, asset ID, the number that I typed in, that's the asset 351-65360. That is not only at my larger landmark, but it is in a nested landmark as well. So that is where you will see the results for the use of the nested landmarks. All right. The next topic that we wanted to cover and discuss were landmark groups. Now, there are a few reasons that you will use landmark groups. Let's go to the landmark group section. For sorting, number one reason, yard checks, trailer pools, landmark group is a sorting selection. In the asset view, asset list, landmark list, you're able to use landmark groups. But one of the things that we had discussed in the first week was setting up users. So I figured now was a good time to circle back on that and discuss the use of landmark groups. This is a good time to discuss the manage settings, users, landmark user management area. So what we're able to do, and this is really the area that we're doing that in, we're creating a landmark group here. And then what we're able to do in the user management section is say, I want these users to be able to see these landmarks, or I want these landmarks in this group to be visible to these users. So you can do it either way. But what we'll do is I'll show you how to set up the landmark group and then how you would apply it retrospect that we talked about week one to a user. So that's one of the other functionalities of landmark groups. So first we go to the landmark group page, manage settings, landmark groups. And the first thing that we want to do is hit plus. So we're going to add a landmark group name. You can assign a landmark group type. It is not a required field. Other region, sub-region, zone, or none, you can leave it that way. And what you can do here is type in a specific landmark name. You can use location ID. You can do many different types of sorting criteria, especially if you have a lot of landmarks in your account. What I'm going to do is really, you can just hit find and it'll show all of them. But when you're setting this up within your specific account, the more landmarks you have, the longer it'll take, obviously, to just give the whole list. But we'll hit find here. And then what I want to do is I'd like to move this landmark. And if you use your control key, you can then select others. And I will move them all into my group, number 3, the ones that I just highlighted. And if I wanted to, say you kind of filter down to any that started with a certain criteria when you're doing the sort, or all location IDs that start with 1, 2, 3, 4, you want to move them all, then you would use the move all here, and it would move every single one that was in this results list over into this landmark group. And then the larger view just kind of pops this out into a bigger screen. So then at this point, what I want to do is hit save. And it'll take a minute just to save these 3 landmarks in the group called Sarah Group 3. And there is Sarah Group 3. So what I want to do is also show you that you're able to edit your landmark groups. So once you have come into the Manage Settings Landmark Groups section, you can select one of your landmark groups. You can edit. You can delete the landmark group, which I'm going to do. And I do want to delete it. Another reason I always encourage people to play around in the system, because if you're going to delete something, it's going to ask you if you're sure that you want to delete something. So another reason to get in here and start playing around with stuff if you haven't before. And you're also able to highlight a group, and then you can download the landmark group. So what it'll then show you is the name of the landmark group and all of the assets that are in that landmark group. So if you ever need to check that, then you can come in here and certainly say, I don't remember what I put in Sarah Group 3, don't have to remember, manage settings, landmark groups, highlight the landmark group that you want to see the members of, the assets that you've put in, and then hit download landmark group. And then you're able to see everything in there, and then you can make any changes if you need to. Over here on the map, while we're doing all this stuff and clicking on different things, if you noticed, there are little pins in the map. The pins are the actual landmarks that are within those groups. So you're able to kind of see where they are in relationship to one another. And maybe that would be a way that you would say, that one landmark, I don't really think that that landmark belongs in here. What I can click on it and see the name of it, and that one is too far away. It shouldn't be in this group. And then I can make changes accordingly. So there are a lot of different things going on here in this landmark group section. You can create new, edit what you already have, take a look on the map at where all of the landmarks are within a group. You can delete them, you can download them. And again, to remind everybody, why are we using landmark groups? Yard check, it becomes a sorting tool. I want to put this group of landmarks into a yard check report. Trailer pools, same thing. This group of landmarks will be applicable in my trailer pools. And searching, asset view, asset list, landmark list. I'm able to then use the groups that I've created, so I don't have to look one landmark at a time. I put them in a group, I can sort that way. And then again, maybe use to restrict the view of a regular user. So we're also going to talk about how we can do that. But that is landmark group setup and edit and deletion. So let's go to manage settings and we'll go to users, landmark user management. So there are two ways that you can do the assignment. You can either assign a user to groups, or you can assign a group to users. So I will select the user here. Now these are landmark users, meaning they're restricted to seeing certain landmark groups. Now I've created my 3 groups. What do I want landmark user number 1 to be able to see? They need to be able to see group 3 and the DRS group. So I used my control key to then highlight the bottom one and the top one, excluding the middle. And I'll move those over. And then I would hit save. I'm not quite sure that's not popping in there, but I would hit save at that point. Or I could add a group to users. So I would say, I want to add this group to these, oops. Not sure what happened there, but of course a pop-up's notifying me. I just not really sure what that one said. And we'll move these over. And same thing, I would hit save here, and that would create Sarah group 1. My group of landmarks is associated to these 2 users only. So that's where I would do this. Landmark manage settings, landmark user management. So I can do user to a group, or I can then do a group to a user. Okay, so what we also wanted to talk about was location-based searching. Let's go to locate assets, location-based search. So there are different reasons, obviously, that we're utilizing landmarks. And one of those is to be able to make our searching more easy, more accessible, landmarks and searching more readily available. Why am I adding all these landmarks? Why am I taking the time to do this? What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing. So we have location-based searching, and we also have landmark activity, which is a fantastic report. And I'm going to dive into that one so everybody can see it. You're going to select a landmark. You're going to be able to look at the duration your asset was in that landmark, so you can make some decisions based on that landmark. And let me get back into my account. 1 second so I can show you this fantastic stuff. And we're going to go back to location-based searching. Once I can log back into the system. So if anybody is logged into Insight right now, what you would do is go to locate assets and location-based search. There are many different criteria right there. Ultimately, what you want to do is just, if you want to see the functionality of the locate assets, location-based searching, you can, oh, here we go. We're back. We are back in business. All right. Fantastic. All right, I think we can see. It's telling me everybody should be able to see it, so I'm going to assume that you can all see this. Locate assets, location-based search. Here we go. Now I can speak to the screen. Fantastic. So what we're able to do here is show all asset IDs or MTs, mobile terminal serial numbers, within a distance of X number of miles. I can look up a landmark. I can look up cities, towns, positions. I can actually put in latitude and longitude. Some people have assets that go places that I'm not really sure what that address is, but I can probably garner some sort of latitude and longitude. What I want to do is I'm going to go to, let's go to Virginia. And we will take a look at, there we go. All right, latest position threshold. So we're going to stay 2 days, but you can pop that open. I'm going to do 2 days for purposes of the WebEx, but of course you can pop it open to 90 days. It's going to give us the position threshold. We discussed that in week 1. Let's look at the map. Okay, so 8 results returned for all assets within 1 mile of landmark HQ Herndon test and having reported within 2 days. So if I want to know if it's reported within the last 5 days, 10 days, we saw that drop down. That's where this is going to show. And down here, well, first we're going to look at the map. And we will, if we click on one of the assets, it will give us the asset ID, the serial number, the landmark, map symbol ID, number 8, which is this, number 8, map ID. View landmarks within 1 mile. I'm not going to dig deeper and keep going screen by screen, but you get what I'm doing here. I can then filter it again based on that one. But if I click here, on line 8, it's then showing me the exact same asset ID, the landmark, headquarters Herndon test, and then we do have that nested landmark there, which is good. So we're seeing it again, but it's always in this presentation right here. And down below, we're going to see the asset ID and what if you're logging into the system and you've been looking at this data, you know, if you're kind of new or if you've been looking at this for years, you know what's going on here. Each line of data is representing the asset ID will let you know the ID on the map is number 8, right? And we do have this little Google feature here that you can look at Street View or Satellite View. The asset ID, the time of observation, received message time, the serial number, the message type. If you have any sensors on here, you're getting more data. As some of you, use our cargo sensor will know, is the cargo sensor working? Is it on? Are we utilizing it to, to let us know if we have cargo within the asset or not? The closest landmark. So this is all information that most people have taken a look at before, but this is just a different way to get to it, right? So you're looking based on a landmark search. It's called the location-based search. Locate assets, location-based search. So that's another way to get information versus looking at all of your assets. I want to look at my location and do a search. What do we have going on in there right now? All right. And landmark activity. So we're going to go to analyze assets and landmark activity. What this will allow you to do is display what assets have been in and out of a landmark over a period of time. So not only are you utilizing the landmark search functionality, but you're also then telling Insight, hey, I want this date range. Hey, I want to look at this date period. So you're able to do that right here. And I will look up my HQ. There we go. My favorite landmark, and I can look at a date range. I can look at a date period. I will look at, let's say, the last 7 days. And what we'll be looking at here, submit. Okay, first, the data over here, results are sorted by the asset ID, then arrival time descending, right? So you're going to see multiple instances of asset IDs arriving and departing from the landmark. So that's why you're seeing the same asset ID over and over again, because it goes in, it comes out, goes back in. And you're going to see this generally, you know, as you spread out your date period, you're going to see obviously more data accruing per asset. So, you know, remember that when you're doing the search. But this is super helpful because it's saying which asset came in and out of this landmark and, you know, when. It's a stop to start time, right? So this is when it stopped and arrived at the landmark, and this is when it started moving out and when it left the landmark. The details icon, I'm going to click on this here. So these will be events that occurred during the time frame that I'm looking at, right? So it's going to keep that line of information here, the asset ID, the serial number, which arrival time and departure time was I looking at here. All right, and then it's going to show me all those icons within the map. Again, I can put it on satellite, I can put on my street labels, whatever I want. I can zoom in, I can zoom out. Again, we still have Google functionality within. If the unit has a cargo sensor, it would show loaded. So activity is where you're going to see that cargo, where you would see the activity that occurred. Right, you can click on these here, and that would show you exactly what had happened. Let's close this up. And you can download this information. Anytime you see this little arrow pointing downward, you can download the information that you're looking at on the screen. And here you're able to search for specific asset IDs. I forgot to mention that, this little part right here where it says search, you're able to put in asset ID and search here singularly. So if I was looking for 3516530, I would type that in here, and then I would be able to get just that information for that asset. All right, so we today have discussed again why set up landmarks. We've also, you know, gone into the details of who should set up the landmark, when should I set up the landmarks, how can I set up the landmarks. I did forget to mention that we do have the ability to do uploads of multiple landmarks so that you don't have to manually enter them all. Again, if you need to learn how to set up landmarks, you can watch the week 2 of the on the SkyBitz YouTube channel. Let me go back here to, I'm going to go to locate assets and asset view. I like to hit on this every week and also describe some other functionality. So today we also discussed nested landmarks, landmark groups, why set up a landmark group, yard check, trailer pools, user management, asset views, asset list, landmark list. You're able to use it as a sorting tool as well. Once you group a bunch of landmarks together, it makes things easier, especially if you're looking for a whole bunch at the same time in a yard check, then you're able to use the landmark groups. And we also talked about the user management portion of setting up the groups. One of the biggest reasons that I'm setting up these groups is so then I can restrict my landmark viewing users, which that helps with that. And location-based searching, as well as landmark activity. So those are 2 other reasons that you're going to be utilizing landmarks, that you can do searching and then get more data via the tool on your landmarks specifically. Now, the locate assets asset view section, one of the newer sections of the user interface, I tout it every week. It's fantastic. It allows you to make quick, actionable decisions right here based on different filter criteria. Say you utilize our GXT 5002C, which is the cargo sensor device. You're able to say, I want to look at all of my assets in this group that have cargo, right? So I want to see cargo. So that's what you would utilize this asset view section for. I want to bring it up every week, but I also bring it up to show you 2 of the items that are within Insight that everybody has access to, regardless of the device you're using, regardless of how many devices you have. We have help section, which is fantastic and is usable. Not every website I go on, you can use the help section. So ours, you are able to. You can move this little guy around as well. So if you pick him up and drag him, you can put him anywhere you see a blue rectangle, which is great. You just can't plop them in the middle of the screen because that's not one of the choices. But just to let you know, once you log out of Insight, then the help section will go back to its default position, which is down here, which it didn't want to go back there. There we go. So I'm going to click on this and let you know what we have going on. Number 1, we have a pop-up. So many of you who've logged in, I'm assuming it's Tuesday, you've logged into Insight at least once. You saw the pop-up for Training Tuesdays, which thank you all for registering. Again, for the returning attendees, super excited. I think every week we're building on what we did the week before, which is fantastic. You can register for Training Tuesdays on that screen. It pops up in the middle. And then you can also register for Training Tuesdays right here. Asset view walkthrough, we have, and I'm going to talk about the show me how. So give me 1 second on that. We have some installation and troubleshooting guides. Current release information. So if we've made any modifications, an Insight release tour would be available, which is great. Any previous release information that we've given you, we don't take it away. We just kind of put it in a different folder so that you can access it if you like to. Training Tuesdays information is right here, which is the link, now we have 2 in there, which are the links to the videos. As soon as the recording is over, we try to get them in there as quickly as possible. Listen to the video, clean it up maybe a little bit, and then put it right here in Training Tuesdays so you may access it. Any training or webinar videos that we have within Insight are in here. So we do have a whole bunch of videos. I'm not necessarily sure that everybody has had time to look through those, but give yourself 10 minutes a day to learn a little bit more about Insight, especially if you're using this tool to help run your business. Maybe give one of the videos a watch, say every Monday at 2 o'clock, I'm going to watch a video on Insight. And then we have webinar videos. So those will be like this style of a video with somebody doing a presentation. We do have a contact us section right here, which is fantastic. You can always call our customer care. You can email our customer care group. Fantastic group of folks. A majority of them have been working here just so long. It's, they know how to do everything. Then we also have Show Me How, which is fantastic. So anytime you see this, and we did see it a little bit earlier in one of the sections I reviewed, but when you see Show Me How, what it's going to do is show you how to use that area of the interface. So click on Show Me How, and it'll describe what it needs to tell you in order for you to then utilize that feature or functionality of Insight. So welcome to the new asset view. I'm of course touting asset view, so go into Show Me How and learn how to use the new asset view. It is pretty intuitive, but give this a run through. It'll tell you how many steps there are, and you can go to next. And then sometimes it'll ask you to do something, right? So here it's going to tell you to submit, and then what happens is when ready, click submit. And I didn't really put any filters on there that were going to produce any results, but let's go back to S. There we go. Here you will see all your results on the map, which there aren't any. And then the next then takes you to refine filtering. Then it'll take you to the next steps. But I just wanted to make sure that everybody was aware of the Show Me How, because it is super fantastic and it allows you to be a little bit more independent when utilizing the system. So anything new, we're going to pop this in here and Show Me How. Just give it a click and it will show you what to do and what you should expect from utilizing that part of the system. So we are just about at 11:45, which is great, 11:45 in my time zone. What I want to do now is open up for questions. If I can't answer, I have some other knowledgeable folks on the call. And also, if I need to give somebody specific information on their account, we can then take some notes and make sure that your issues or your questions get addressed specifically. But let's open it up for questions. And
thank you, Sarah.
You're welcome.
So if you have any questions, go ahead and you can submit them through the questions section of the GoToWebinar, or raise your hand and we can come through and unmute you throughout. So we do have one question already through the questions submission. The question is from Margot Cox. We have a dispatch set up by area. Would it be possible to set up landmark groups for dispatch to pull only the states that they are responsible for? Example, our GLR region is Ohio, Indiana, Illinois, and Wisconsin.
Hi, Margot. That was a lot in the question, and I don't know if Debbie heard that question or not and can help me with the answer. I might need you to read it again, or I might need to offline with Margot. I think that would be the better of the two choices. Margot,
yeah, hey, it's Debbie. Sorry, I was trying to hit the mute button, and anyway, I have it together now. So yes, actually, this is a really common reason why people do landmark groups, is so their dispatcher can see only the set of states that they are responsible for. So absolutely, set up a group. Put any, now in order to do that, you either need to identify the landmarks in those states that you care about, or if you care about the entire states, what I've seen people do is they just create landmarks that are for the entire state. So that might be a good one to go back to one of our experts in the customer care team and have them guide you through setting that up, because they probably have heard this request before.
Right. Okay. And Margot, we've chatted, so luckily, you know, we can have a discussion on this, and I can certainly help you out and get you to the point where you need to be. Thank you, Debbie. I appreciate that.
No problem.
Great. Let's see. We do not have any other questions currently submitted through the question. Let's see if anyone has any questions. Again, through audio, you can raise your hand and we can get you unmuted. Simply click the raise hand in the control panel. Okay. All right, I'm not seeing any additional questions here, Sarah, so I'll go ahead and throw it back to you.
Sure. So what I wanted to mention to everyone on the call, other than thank you so much for attending, what we do after the call is over is we're going to send out via email a quick 6-question survey for feedback. So it would really help us to improve the WebExes, to add content that's valuable. Take the 2 minutes to complete it. I believe most of them are just select an answer. You don't really have to go deep into any comments. But we would greatly appreciate it so we can keep doing this, and we feel this is a powerful learning tool, live WebEx with our customers. And we certainly, again, I can't say this enough, would like to thank you for attending the session today. These sessions are about you, our partners, and helping you leverage the powerful tools that we're providing to you via our website Insight. If you have any recommendations, please let us know. Some of you, maybe talk to personally, or if you talk to your customer success manager or a customer care representative about Training Tuesdays and say, hey, it would be awesome to learn about this or that. We do still have a bunch more weeks to go, and we have a lot more learning to provide. But if there's something that you feel strongly about learning or knowing about within the tool or about SkyBitz, really, let us know and we would be happy to add it. And next week, we're going to start talking about notifications and how they can help you make real-time decisions based on events. So stay tuned. That'll be on September 8th. at 11 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. And I thank you again. On the screen is the phone number for customer care as well as the email address. And I will see you all next week. Thank you.